Welcome to Winning Formula, courtesy of the Minnesota Lottery. Paul Allen with Gabe Henderson from the Vikings Entertainment Network and Pete Bercich, decade-and-a-half analyst for the Minnesota Vikings radio network, also former player and coach for your favorite team. The Winning Formula added up last week against Green Bay. Let's go 2 for 2, and we begin with the winning formula for slowing this running quarterback, Jalen Hurts. And it's legit. 10 rushing touchdowns last year, and he just ran for 90-1 against the Motor City Kitties. Pete, what's that winning formula?
Well, a couple things. Number one, defensively, you've got to know what your keys are, and you have to read your keys. Who has the running back? Who's responsible for this? Because they'll in the option game, they just turn guys loose. And if you hesitate, you're dead. So you can't do that. Number two, don't play man-to-man or be very selective for when you play man-to-man, because if he gets to the top of his drop and sees all eyes, the DBs all looking at the receivers, he's going to pull that thing down, and just take off. And then you got to be disciplined on the rush as well, meaning stay in your lanes. Don't go out of body and think you're going to, this is an immobile quarterback. You've got to stay in your lanes. And then defensively, because he's not always just a drop-back passer, the running game he really meshes with the passing game. Mix up how many you're rushing and who you're rushing. Yeah. Rush 2, rush 5, rush 3, give him different looks to make him uncomfortable so he can't make that, because he makes such a great split-second decision. He gets to the top of his drop. If he sees what he likes, he throws it. If not, he pulls that thing down and he's a threat. Yep. So you got to keep him, you got to slow him down a little bit, and that's one of the ways I think they can do that.
And teams that have been effective, similar to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year, one thing the interior defensive tackles did, they never got further than 3 yards up the field. So they would get a good pass rush, and then they would wait for Jalen Hurts to make a decision, and then they would react. Because if you get too far upfield, he's just going to run right underneath you. Like you were saying, Pete, if you're playing man-to-man, he sees those guys with their eyes on the receiver. So that's 15, 20 yards. So don't get too far upfield. Understand your keys and do what you got to do.
Now, let's stay there with G, but specifically the Minnesota Vikings offense and the winning formula to getting some of that 181 on the ground. The Eagles just gave up to the Detroit Lions, and we have Dalvin, and we have Madison. How do we get some of that?
Well, unlike what I said last week where you had to get the ball on the outside to beat the Green Bay Packers, this week you need to get the ball downhill in between the guard and the center. The Detroit Lions last week did a really good job of using Fletcher Cox and Jonathan Hargrave's aggressiveness to their advantage. Those guys like to get upfield. They just ran it right underneath. The Detroit Lions had 5 runs last week of 11-plus yards. They had a 50-yarder last week, and all 5 of those runs came right up the middle. I think we have a better offensive line than the Detroit Lions. Dalvin Cook, top 5 running back in the NFL. There are going to be opportunities for him to gash those guys downfield and get up to the second and third level. Speaking of third level, their safety, who plays the third level, led the team in tackles last week. So that says a lot about how we can get the ball downhill, get it past our linebackers, and hopefully get big yardage.
Never a good sign, but you're right. Detroit did exactly that. They took advantage of this unique front and how they play it with Philadelphia. The D linemen are so up the field, they kicked them out. They found the creases inside. The other thing I think, Paul, in the passing game, we have to go after the outsides. They play a lot of cover 8. They do a lot of different of those things. But in their 3 deeps and their 8s, it's just an umbrella. It's quarters, right? They do a really nice job of passing off deep crossers. Yeah. So that part of the game is going to be a challenge. This group plays really, really well together. And so there are opportunities, though. So I think it's going to be the Kirk Cousins strong arm, throwing the ball outside the numbers. Those opportunities are going to be there, so you're going to have to be patient. Let this run game develop, let it get explosive, and then passing-wise, attack the outsides, move the chains. So it's going to look a little different, I think, than a week ago.
Bold predictions. This is winning formula, courtesy of the Minnesota Lottery. We're going to let the analyst go last because he has a whopper coming up for you. So I'll go first. My bold prediction is the Minnesota Vikings begin 2-0 because unpredictability and deception still are on the side of the team until they get at least 3 games of tape. Oh, by the way, we have JJ too. That's mine. Gabe?
Speaking of 2, I believe the Vikings will have 2 interceptions on Sunday. And if you look at the history, Whenever Jalen Hurts throws 2 or more interceptions, they are 0-4 as him as a starting quarterback. Like Pete said earlier, he's a guy that goes to his first read, then pulls the ball down and run. If we don't get too far upfield, that means he has to figure things out, throw the ball up in the air. Harrison Smith, maybe it's his second or third interception on Sunday.
Now, for the analyst, Pete Bercich, the bold prediction into the Eagles game is going to involve the name Justin Jefferson. Off a game, he just set a single game career high of 184 yards. Aaron Rodgers, after the game, basically called him the best receiver in the NFL. Kevin O'Connell, in film study with the analyst this week, called JJ the best receiver in the NFL. What are we going to do here?
My bold prediction is that combined yardage of Dalvin Cook will be more than Justin Jefferson. When you add up what Dalvin Cook's going to do in the run and in the receiving game, he'll end up with more yards, I think, than Justin. Why? Because of the success Detroit had running the football. I think we'll figure out a scheme where our offensive line is a lot more physical than Detroit's line. I just love that matchup. And then number 2, because of that attacking defensive line and what they do up front, the screen game is going to be absolutely huge. So don't be surprised if JJ breaks 100, Dalvin's at around 100, and then he catches that 50-yard screen late in the game, and that puts him over the top, and then you guys will be saying, yep,
Pete was
I'll
right.
be saying, I told you so.
Ain't that great, too, when you get somebody with 184 and you still have, oh, by the way, the big horses in the barn, like Dalvin and Adam Thielen and KJ Osborne. Oh, what a wonderful victory over Green Bay. Let's watch this team go 2-0. For Gabe Henderson and Pete Bercich, I'm Paul Allen. That's Winning Formula, courtesy of the Minnesota Lottery.